players and caddy relationships on tour where everybody's got their own way that they're kind of looking at things, right? And are you sitting down after the fact and when you're playing your practice rounds, I mean, are you busting the book open to be like, hey man, do you remember that one in 2019 and we thought it was going here, but it went there. And then, and it's going to depend on the weather. I mean, there's all kinds of conditions that can change that, right?
And especially because conditions change from year to year, but there are a lot of times where if like a certain pin placement gave you trouble, like because people see us out there practicing, but most of the pins are in practice are like in the middle of the green, and it doesn't do you good to hit to that pin all the time because you're never going to hit to that pin. So sometimes you're out there and be like, hey, remember that like tuck flag on the left? Like we need to hit that shot. Like forget about the pin. Like we might hit one to it just to hit like a visually shot to a pin, but we might say, it's a 175-yard shot to that tuck pin on the left. So like break out your 8-iron or 9-iron and let's hit one to that shot to that spot of the green just to get kind of like familiar with it because it gave us a hard time in the past. Like let's say if you overhook it, it's short-sighted and running away from you and it's dead. You don't want to do that. So we need to get that visual of like bringing it in from the middle of the green to the flag versus like starting at the flag and overhooking or something like that. So, those are, I guess when we're both sitting in the fairway with our books and we're kind of going over history at that particular course, that's what you're going to kind of look at a lot of times and see like, okay, well, what gave us the most trouble? Because that's what you need to work on. Usually a guy who hits draws, those left pins shouldn't give you too much trouble, but there might be a couple holes where like if cuts aren't really your go-to, you might need to hit a couple cuts to some of those right flags because it's just like some of them hitting a draw to some of these right flags, you have to start it in a hazard sometimes. You're like, well, that's not coming.